Greetings! Today I'm going to be reviewing the brand new album from Thundercat titled It Is What It Is. I hope you enjoy. The album kicks off with a starry intro with Thundercat's high-pitched vocals and a sentimental delivery of lyrics from the perspective of someone drifting in space. Space being a metaphor for being trapped inside your own mind with feelings of loneliness and anxiety, and the cosmic ambience of the track works well enough as it transitions into the next track. Though it is a pretty short intro, it does serve as a good tone setter and really plants a seed for the theme to really blossom in the last leg of the album. This is a great track to follow the intro with. The smooth bass drums with shifting patterns paired with Thundercat's vocals I think is great, and I love Kamasi Washington's saxophone performance about midway through the track. It sets a high bar for the album in terms of quality pretty early on. This song starts with a string intro before incorporating some high-tempo drums with some orchestral segues sprinkled here and there. The song topic is pretty funny, as Thundercat is describing going to a party with Louis Cole and how grateful he is for having Lewis as a friend, while Lewis is describing all the dumb things he's doing, like punching people and things of that nature. It ends up being a pretty lovely bromantic track. Instrumentally, there's more of a funk element incorporated into this song. There are 4 vocal spots between Thundercat, Steve Lacy, Steve Arrington, and Childish Gambino, and I think all of them have great performances. I love that the track is able to keep a consistent sonic tone while giving each spot their own vocal flair, and the somber string sound off is just a cherry on top. After a great string of opening tracks, I found myself not enjoying this one as much as I wanted to. I do like the instrumental, the bass hits, I think the hits of synth, and the quirky textures sound good, but the vocal delivery that Thundercat is using doesn't really pair well with the instrumental. It doesn't feel like it's adding anything essential or unique to the album. And this was more apparent to me on my second listen, and it's not a bad track by any means, but it's just not that memorable for me. This track is more of like an instrumental one-off. There isn't really a focus on songwriting. It kind of utilizes the vocalizations as instrumental cues. The stringy bass and the electronic texture progression makes for a solid minute and a half of instrumentation. It doesn't feel inessential to the track list despite its short runtime. This is another short track that instrumentally is made up of a prominent drum rhythm with some obtuse bass and a bright synth overtone. The songwriting on this track isn't really anything new, but I do find Thundercat's vocals engaging as he's singing about being around someone so much to the point where he feels like he's annoying them, but it's just to show how much they mean to him. I wish the track had more of a dynamic element to it, but it was still pretty enjoyable. Another smooth, bassy, sensual track with some catchy vocal melodies. I love Zach Fox's bit as the pilot of the plane. I found it pretty hilarious. Though it's only like a minute and a half long, I love the musical synergy between the instrumental and Thundercat's vocals. I think they pair together very well on this track. Another hilarious track with some harp and sax chunks thrown in with the cosmic electronic sound. I love Thundercat's nonchalant delivery as he's trying to be accepted by a girl despite his interest and an odd sense of situational fashion. Despite perhaps coming off as a gimmicky track at first, I think musically it holds up extremely well. The vocal melody is just sort of sudden yet intoxicating. This sounds like a snippet of a much more developed track, with how sparse it is and how insignificant the track is in relation to the pacing on the album. I'm not even sure why this was even included. It doesn't even sound like, it doesn't even pass as a bridging interlude or even a segue into the following track. It's just kind of there. This track begins with some mysterious keyboards and kind of adds itself well into the album's sound palette. I love the songwriting on this track, with the lyrics describing a selfish king who wastes his time, money, and emotion with these trivial splendors. It ends up being a very interesting track. This track is more of a slow R&B type vibe with a lot of soul ingrained into the songwriting itself. I love the shimmering orchestral pieces as well. Thundercat is singing about his love being lost to time as he makes an effort to rekindle the flame with no result. His vocal performance is the best on the record. He really sells me on the emotion and his efforts to mend the void he has over this person. It's a very beautiful track. This track serves as a tribute to Mac Miller, with Thundercat, Ty Dolla $ign, and Lil B reflecting on life without him. The soft-serving instrumental helps bring out a lot of the pain, and their performances are heartfelt, especially Thundercat's, as he realizes there's really nothing he can do about this but persevere through this tragedy. As the title of the track insinuates, the interlude tackles the uncertainty of life. It has a pretty basic instrumental, but I think it is well woven into the theme that has blossomed from the intro. Though it is a short interlude, I think it is a perfect way to link itself into the closer that follows. The closure of the album ends up being quite a journey. I love the sparse emotive acoustics and the dark bass being the melancholic backdrop as Thundercat reflects on his life after the loss of Mac Miller. It sounds like no matter how much he tries to move on, he is always pulled back into thinking what could have been had he done more. And I think for the first half of the track, it is pretty... I think for the first half of the track that it really does... I think for the first half of the track, it really does rely on more of the emotional grift you get from Thundercat's performance. However, midway through, the song switches gears as it opens up with Thundercat greeting Mac, and has a more optimistic tone as it gently drifts to the finish line. I love this album. I think Thundercat came through with another great album to add to his discography. It does still have a personal flaw I think I have with this album, where I feel like the instrumental palette sounds recycled in some places, making some of the songs feel like slight retreads with familiar sounds. But in the same breath, he delivers a consistent record with some funny and emotional songwriting, getting a more introspective look into Thundercat's mindset after recent events. He's still a goofy, fun-loving personality, but with this album I was able to take in a lot of his vulnerability, which I think adds a unique aspect to this record. I give it a...